Hey y'all, today I'm going to do a really basic video on the difference between sales tax and income tax for your 501c3 nonprofit. Let's get into it. Hey y'all, this is Tiffany with Boss on the Budget. I help new and small nonprofits get up and running. If you need help with your nonprofit, make sure you are subscribed because I share videos about starting a nonprofit, how to run your nonprofit in your first year, and also about how to raise money for your new nonprofit. I share videos every week on those topics, so make sure you are following me at Boss on the Budget. Now, I'm going to do a very basic 101. Now, I'm just going to get some stuff out the way before we even get into this video, because I just need you to understand some things. Number one, I am not an accountant. And number two, I am not your accountant. So the information that I share in this video is for general information. If you really need specific advice related to your nonprofit, I suggest you contact a professional in your area that actually practices in your state, because a lot of this depends on the different states that you're operating in. The second thing I just wanted to share is that this is like a basic video on sales tax and income tax, but there are plenty of people on YouTube who do a better job at explaining accounting and what does sales tax mean for your nonprofit, what does income tax mean for your nonprofit, and how to deal with that. So I'm not going to go all the way into details, but I'm just explaining just enough so you know the difference, because this has implications for the forms that you use, and people get tripped up, especially when they're starting and they don't know what form they should be thinking about, how to approach it. So that's why I wanted to do this video. So I know you're like, okay, if you have to do all these caveats, Tiffany, why are you doing the video? But I'm doing the video because just for myself, when I was first starting a nonprofit and beginning to understand sales tax and income tax, I was confused. So I, a lot of times, will share videos based on my own experience and the things that I had to learn along the way. So I'm just sharing it with you. All right. So in this video, what I'm going to do is define sales tax versus income tax. Then I'm going to explain the different forms you have to fill out for your nonprofit, depending on each one. And then I'm going to talk about what that means for your donors and what that means for your organization. So that's kind of the structure of this video. And I'm going to put down like the different sections so you can skip to the sections below. Now, first things first, what's the definition of both? Okay, so for sales tax, it's a tax that is imposed on purchases. So when people purchase an item, then they have to often pay tax for that. Now that depends on the state, because there are certain items in certain states that you don't have to pay sales tax on. Income tax is income that you make, like anything that is considered as income. So if you make any sort of income as an individual or as a business and the IRS catches wind of it, then they are expecting for you to pay tax on that income, which is why at the end of the year we do our taxes, because we have to make sure that we've submitted all of our tax that are owed to the federal government. Now, the differences between the sales tax and income tax is the level, right? So for sales tax, that's usually delegated to the states. So each state has its own rules around sales tax, what is supposed to be taxed, what the customer has to pay in terms of tax, and how the organization is supposed to deal with that if they're selling to someone, right? So this only comes to play for your nonprofit if you're selling items and you're collecting sales tax because the customer had to pay sales tax, all right? So keep that in your mind. Income tax, any money that you make as a nonprofit, any money versus your donations, or whether you sold a product or you got a grant, that's income, right? And so if that income is taxed, that's what income tax is. But as a nonprofit, the whole point of it is, the benefit of it is that you don't have to pay that. If you do make money and it's related to your charitable purpose, then you are exempt. Hence the word tax exempt. But I just want to be clear that that's at the federal level. When we're talking about 501c3 status, that means you're exempt from paying federal income tax. Now, a little caveat is sometimes states have income tax too. And sometimes states will allow you to be exempt from state income tax as well. That's a different process. That's a whole different level. So when you're thinking about taxes and the implications for your organization, you have to remember that there are two different levels you need to deal with. There's the state level and then there's the federal level. Okay. So now let's move on to forms. What does that mean for you in terms of forms and what's different? So when we're talking about sales tax, if you are a nonprofit and you are selling a product or service that is taxable in your state, that means that you need to collect the sales tax that you charge your customers, and you need to submit that tax that you collected to the state. So you should be keeping track of every purchase that you make, because more than likely, probably monthly, you're going to have to send in that tax and pay it to the state. If the state finds out that you're charging sales tax and you're not collecting, right, or you're not submitting it to the state, then that can be a major problem for you. So usually in each state, you'll have to fill out a form that allows you, first of all, to sell items in your state. It may be different names, so I can't say what the names are for every state. In my state, it's called a sales and use tax certificate. So you have to fill out a form to get your sales and use tax certificate. And then what you have to do is sign up for an account at the government tax website for the state. And then every month go in, then record how many purchases or how many items you sold for the month, and then how much tax you collected for the month. And then you're going to have to pay it directly to the state. So that's different. Those are the forms and the process for that. When it comes to your income tax, if you want to be exempt from federal income tax, then you need to fill out the 1023 or the 1023 EZ form, okay? Those are the forms that you use to apply for 501c3 tax exempt status. I actually talk a lot about these forms and this process. So I'm linking above, first of all, a video that I did explaining the 1023 EZ form, and then another video that I did also about the biggest mistake people make when filling out these forms. So when we're dealing with federal income tax and you want to be exempt from paying that, then you would use those particular forms. I hope you're still with me, right? So sales and use tax is when you're selling a product and you're charging the customer. You have to fill out a form, first of all, to be able to do that as a nonprofit, and then you have to remit that tax to the state. Again, every state is different, right? How you collect it, what it's called is different. So you need to do your due diligence and start with the Secretary of State's office. And if there's a Department of Assessment or Taxation, they can help you as well, okay? Now I'm going to talk about what does that mean for your donors and what does that mean for you as an organization. So for your donors, for the people who are your supporters, when it comes to sales tax, exactly what I said. If they are purchasing an item from you, then you need to make sure that you're collecting sales tax. There are a lot of, different apps and services that will collect the sales tax for you. So I'll just throw it out there. eBay, like if you're doing stuff, selling items on eBay, then eBay will collect the sales tax and eBay will actually submit it for you to the state. But you need to know what the process is so you're not making mistakes or you're not doing something that the state expects you to do. When it comes to federal income tax, that means for your donors is that they can write off the donations that they give to you. That's the implication for them. That's how it impacts them. So that means that when they donate to you, they more than likely will need a tax receipt. Now, there are some limitations on that. You don't necessarily have to give a tax receipt for every donation, but I recommend that you do. And I actually broke that down in a video I'm linking above about tax receipts for donations. But you can provide that information to them and they can use that to write off that donation on their taxes. So for you as an organization, you just need to make sure that you're keeping track of the donations that are donated to you so that you can make sure you're sending those donations in. And then for your 990 form, which is your annual tax form, you have all those things in order so you're collecting and tracking that information. One more thing I want to say about sales tax, which means that you're probably selling something. You just need to be very clear that if you're selling an item or you're selling a service, that if it's not related to your charitable purpose, then you may risk losing your 501c3 status if you spend too much time on that particular thing, right? Or if you spend too much time selling that item. If it becomes way more encompassing than your actual mission work, then the IRS sees that as a red flag. That's called unrelated business income, and they may add more scrutiny to what you're doing. You do need to also record that and report that if you're making money not related to your charitable purpose. So I talked about this a little bit in a video that I talked about with earned income strategies. So you should check that out. And also I'm linking it below, and a freebie that gives you 50 free earned income ideas for your nonprofit. You just gotta know all the implications because it can get really, really messy. All right. This is the last thing I want to share though. I know this is probably complicated and you're listening to me and you're like, Tiffany, I still don't understand. Well, I hope you at least got a little bit out of what I'm saying, a little bit of clarification. But I just want to say one more thing. As a nonprofit, you may not have to pay sales tax, right? So this is a little bit different. This is not your customers paying sales tax. This is you as a founder going to pay for an item, and you don't want to pay sales tax on that item when you purchase it, right? That is a different process than anything that I've talked about in this video. Now, this is up to the state, and this is actually up to the specific store that you're working with. There are certain kinds of documentation they may want to see. They may want to see your 501c3 letter, or they may want to see something else. But in order for you as an organization not to have to pay sales tax, that's a different process as well. So you may be able to make purchases regularly and not have to pay the extra 5-6%, whatever it is in that particular state. So that's a separate process. That's something even different than what I talked about that I just wanted to clarify to make sure you understood. All right, y'all. So hopefully you got something out of this video. If you need more help, make sure you go to my website, www.bossonabudget.com, and I'll see you in the next video.